in history, as well as people have no money down. That's right, no money down. They're located at 6385 North Federal Boulevard with a great auto inventory. Give them a call at 303-298-1155. That's Magic Financing. Features Margo the Magician. They're open Monday through Friday until 8 and Saturdays till 7. Check them out. That's Magic Financing. Call them today at 303-298-1155. Tell them you heard about it here at KUHSdenver.com. Also visit us at www.magicfinancing.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the council, folks. I'm your host, Charlie Pacello, and boy, do we have an amazing guest to share with you today. I can't wait to introduce you to him. I've been looking forward to this show since I met Orion 2 years ago. So before we get to our guest and to talking about our topic today, I just want to do a quick shout out to KUHS Denver. KUHS is the platform where we broadcast from this ship here, this radio, TV stream that we're broadcasting here from Denver, Colorado, all across the nation and all across the world. The council is being listened to by so many different people in so many different countries. It's an honor to be your host, and thank you, KUHS, for hosting the council. Also to magicfinancing.com, the sponsors of our show. If you need a car, a used car, a brand new car, a dream car, you got to go to magicfinancing.com. Talk to Maurizio, let him know that I sent you, tell him that Charlie from the council sent you, and they will help you to finance your car. Whether it's a work truck, whether it's a travel vehicle, whether it's just a car that you've been dreaming of, go to magicfinancing.com. www.magicfinancing.com. Also, wanted to make sure that everybody knows that I have a book out there. It's called Meditations with Masters of the Axial Age, and it's a book from the soul. It's a book from my heart. It's really to help us connect to the deeper truths of the soul. I consider it to be a self-help book for your soul, to help you to get into a deeper connection with what really operates behind your eyes, that invisible world, the power behind your eyes that is rooted in your character and your belief system and your soul. And these masters during this period of time, 900 BC to 200 BC, were experiencing a major upheaval like we are experiencing right now. And they were trying to understand and move through the violence, the suffering, the pain that they were experiencing. And they were coming up with these jewels, these gems about how to be able to connect to that deep inner reservoir that's inside of us and to move through challenging times to reach enlightenment, to reach a place of peace, an inner sanctuary of peace, and cultivate that. And so you get to meet 6 masters: Lao Tzu, Socrates, Ezekiel, the Buddha, the mystics of the Upanishads, and the Greek tragedy playwrights. So check it out, Meditations with Masters of the Axial Age, a book that couldn't be more important today. Go to storebookbaby.com or amazon.com as well. You can buy it paperback or ebook, also at Barnes & Noble. So Meditations with Masters of the Axial Age. Okay, folks. Today we're moving in a slightly new and empowering direction, and to kind of get us into the deeper mysteries of life, and to be able to tap into the invisible world that's all around us, that's active, that's waiting for us to be able to invite that invisible world to us. We have to invite that invisible world into our lives. And it's waiting there for us to do so. But how do we do that? And what does it mean to be able to connect on a deep, intimate level with the spirituality that's all around us? And you know what? I was fascinated by shamanism since for a very long time, since I've been on my own path. And you know, I knew that shamans had they worked with the indigenous cultures. They pre-existed priests. They pre-existed imams and rabbis. They were part of there was Celtic shamans, there were shamans of Roman shamans, there were shamans that every tribe had to have someone who was a healer that could be an intermediary between the spiritual world and the physical world. And they were part and parcel of how our ancestors moved through the world and were able to adapt and to see what was needed to be done, and to listen to those who could see things that we couldn't see. And shamanism is it's not an organized religion. It's more of a spiritual practice, and it cuts across all faiths and creeds, and it reaches us at a deep level of our ancestral memory. It's a primal belief system, which precedes established religion. And it's got its own symbolism and cosmology, inhabited by beings and gods and totems, who display the similar characteristics, although they appear in various forms. Now, it's a practice from cultures, spiritual practice from cultures all around the world, from ancient times to the present day. And first and foremost, shamans' practices are practical and adaptable. And these practices have coexisted over a millennia with varying cultures and systems of government and organized religious practices. Many forms of religions, a lot of people don't know this, but many forms of religions, including Buddhism and Christianity, all came from ancient shamanic roots. And they still bear the shamanic threads of this deep connection to the divine in all things. But shamanism itself is not a formalized system of beliefs or an ideology. Rather, what it is it's a group of activities and experiences that are shared by shamans in cultures all around the world. It's a mystical experience of the divine in everything. And these practices are adaptable and they coexist, no matter what part of the planet you are on, whether you're here in America or you happen to be in Australia. And today our guest is living in, or is inhabiting Australia. He's coming in, we're Zooming him in. He has graced us, blessed us with his presence to be here at 5 o'clock in the morning, Australia time, in midwinter. And his name is Orion. And he began his journey into adulthood as a combat engineer officer in the Australian Army. In his mid-30s, he had a spirit illness, epiphany, that altered the course of his life. And in this new life direction, he has been blessed to have had three profound teachers. Richard Running Deer, a Southern Ute medicine man. Dicky Minitiri, I don't know how to pronounce that, but from Australian shaman. And the esteemed and renowned Dr. Raphael Locke, a visiting professor to the University of Virginia and initiated shaman in two different indigenous cultures. Orion is trained in both Australian Aboriginal and Native American ways and is an initiated shaman in the spirit of the Earth Medicine Society, and has a degree in metaphysical science from the University of Sedona here in the United States. His website is www.truthandpower.com.au. Again, that's www.truthandpower.com.au. Orion, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie.
How is it down there in Australia today? Is it it's midwinter, right? Is it a little bit chilly this morning? I know it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. It's about 6 degrees. Australia gets cold generally as the US, so 6 degrees is pretty chilly for us. We tend to live in a high climate, and as you saw from bushfires last year, when it gets hot, it can get really hot.
Has Australia recovered from the bushfires, by the way? Is it in the process?
We have a vast area that was destroyed, and more than 1 billion animals. So died in the process. So, then we got hit by COVID-19. So, the whole place sort of got a double whammy, if you get what I mean. And so, but the thing about Australia is that our life cycle here, the Australian bush needs to have fire every 7 years to regenerate. So fire is very much a part of our lives. What's been different this time is that we had flames 70 meters high, which I guess is about 200 feet.
Oh my God.
So this is a new dimension in terms of let's not get into the warming of the planet, but we've gone to another dimension with fires here now, and it just destroys everything. It melts engine blocks.
Melts engine blocks?
Melts engine blocks.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're still recovering from that, but getting to here, it's still dark. The sun will come up in about an hour's time. And it's about 6 degrees. It's very still here at the moment, so it's nice, and it's just a cool winter's morning. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, Orion, for taking time out of your morning and waking up so early to join us on the show here. I know we had a time zone confusion. I think because yesterday you sent me a message and said, "Well, I'm waiting to get on the show," and I said, "No, it's tomorrow."
The international dayline will do that to us.
Right. So you're already in tomorrow. You're in Saturday. You're on.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 5 a.m. Sunday morning here in Australia.
Wow. Well, Orion, could you talk to us about, because we want to, I want to help people to understand more in depth. I just gave a brief outline and description, almost a definition from an encyclopedia's perspective of shamanism, but that's not all of it. Could you talk about your ancestry first, though, and who you are, so people can get an idea about what your journey was like to finally becoming an initiated shaman?
Yeah, well, thank you, Charlie. My ancestry is, I come from a World War II refugee family. My parents escaped Europe. My father is Croatian, my mother's German, and my birth name is Andrew, and my shamanic name is Orion, and that's another story. So we came to Australia post World War II. I was born in the early 50s, and my parents didn't get along. So I grew up with my mother, and my father moved on to Canada. So I grew up with my mother as an only child. I was a devout Roman Catholic, and I was an orphan boy, and I was really quite a devout child. And during the holidays, I would go to the monastery and go on prayer retreats, and I took all that pretty seriously. We had a change of priest, and the new guy that came in was a pedophile, and I got sexually abused in the name of God. So I thought, well, if this is God, then you can have it. I'm using polite terms now. So from there, I guess I became a fairly angry young man, and I thought, well, and at that stage the Vietnam War was on, so I thought, well, I'm going to just go and fight because I was angry with what had happened to me. So I joined the army, went through officer training program. And I became a combat engineer, and I got ready to go to Vietnam, but the whole thing changed, and fortunately, not at the time I didn't think, but fortunately I didn't go. But then I continued a career in the army, and I ended up commanding a counter-terrorist unit for 3 years. I got promoted to major, and then I thought, no, this something else was calling me, but I didn't know what. And then I headed into commercial life and became very successful. And basically, my journey into spirit commenced in my mid-30s. I was in the commercial world. I was a state manager, had about 150 people working for me. what the psychologists now call ontological shock, which all I can say is that I was in a meeting a Friday afternoon, and my whole world dissolved in front of me. It usually took me an hour to get to work. It took me 8 hours to get home. Cut a long story short, 2 years later, having tried every blood test, every drug regime, every diet, every conceivable thing, I was with Professor John Dwyer at the University of New South Wales, which is like the top of medicine, and he said, "Sorry, mate, we don't know what's the matter with you, but you're the way you're heading. I spent 2 years in a dark room in the fetal position, cold, clammy sweat."
Wow.
And so when medical science wrote me off and said, just go away and die, I thought, well, look, if there is God's spirit, whatever, then the only way that I'm going to survive is to heal myself. And so what I had left, I would meditate.
Were you at that point, Orion? Were you at that point? Were you not even? Were you almost atheistic after what you had experienced? Because I grew up as Catholic as well. I was and had known people and had experienced, but and so it's like it cut you off from the life force and source. So was that part of what was going on with you? Were you at that point where you didn't believe any longer?
Yeah, you nailed it, Charlie. I'd always had an interest in the metaphysical, so I kept up sort of an academic interest in different cosmologies. Cosmology is a belief system. And so, I studied Buddhism, and I studied Sufism, and I looked at some of the ancient ways. Just from an academic interest point of view, my mind was geared towards that. That was just one of those things. But I hadn't been eating, and my body had sort of faded away, I guess is the best way to put it. So I had read that when people have a drowning experience, they can have a view of their life in an instant. And this morning, I gave myself a 3-month contract. If I didn't achieve anything after 3 months, I was going to take my life. But about 2/3 of the way through the process, I got this near-death experience, and somehow in my consciousness, the world, I got a video of where I was, which was not in a good place. I was in an unhappy marriage, and my father had abandoned me, so I wasn't going to abandon my children, and it was just all heading south, and nothing was right, and there it was. I was looking at it, and I was living my life through anger, through concentration on stuff, not looking after my body, not connected to the planet. I was just lost in the Western world, I guess, full on. And I had everything I wanted. A big house and cars and all of that, but I didn't have happiness. And then the Spirit showed me and said, look, if you're going to continue your life, you've got to follow the path of your heart. You've got to start listening to what's inside you, not outside you. And I thought, oh, okay. So then I came out of that, and I left the relationship after 17 years of marriage, and then started my conscious journey. And there's an old Zen saying, when the student is ready, the master appears. And so I commenced that journey of self-discovery. I did a whole number of courses to find out who the hell I was, and so I had an idea to find out who I wanted to be.
Right, of course.
And my journey went far and wide, and I did a lot of things, and I did a course in the Blue Mountains here west of Sydney. And it was a men's course, and it was about the archetypes, four basic archetypes of the king, the warrior, the lover, and the magician. And when you were asked to listen to inside and go to one of these quadrants as to who you were, and having been an army officer and been in command of men and being natural leader in life, of course, I just gravitated to the king. And then the concept of the magician was over there, and I kept on looking at this magician, saying, my heart was saying, hey, that's where you want to be, pal. This idea of being a king, that's where you want to be. Anyway, the last day of this course, I had never done anything like this before. In those days, it was called rebirthing. These days, it's called holotropic breathwork. It's where you hyperventilate, and then you somehow, by hyperventilating, you go into a collapsed position. You fall backwards. People catch you, lay on a mattress, and you travel. This is the first time I'd ever done that. Anyway, all of a sudden, and it was like I'm sitting here with you, Charlie. All of a sudden, I'm on a prairie in North America, and I'm thinking to myself, "What the hell? I'm in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney, and I'm on this prairie in North America. And by the way, there were 2 buffalo running straight at me."
Wow.
And I thought, "Whoa, I'm going to get run over here. Wait a minute, I'm in the Blue Mountains. What am I doing here?" And at the very last second, these buffalo passed us, and I felt the wind of it, and I'm going, "Oh, what is going on here?" And then there's this Native American medicine saying, "You come this way." So I followed them in this teepee, and we did all these rituals, and it was all cool. And then I came out of this journey. And the guy that was running it, Brendan, I said, we were talking about this, and I said, "Hey, this is what happened to me." And he said, "Wow, okay." So, cut a long story short, he had a connection in the US, and we went over there, and I met Richard Runningham, I immediately struck up a good relationship with him. Probably one of the funniest men I've ever met in my life. My goodness, his dry sense of humour. At times, my cheekbones would ache from laughing.
Well, he was from Colorado, right? He was from one of the Colorado Utes Native American tribes, correct? So he's native here.
Actually, I flew into Durango.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, and he lived in Cortez, and we were on this property outside of Durango, and I just don't remember the name of it. But yeah, so I came under his guidance, and gee, just learned an enormous lot. And then after I left the US, we stayed in contact, and now he's passed. Pardon me. He's passed, and in my world, he's actually now one of my spirit guides, and our journey continues together. But yeah, a great man. He did, his life. He was one of those humble guys, and I think he drove trucks and became a nuisance in other places. But he was a real medicine man, and a really profound man, and a man with a big heart and a good heart. And he and his partner, Cheyenne West, she's passed too. Lovely couple, and I certainly enjoyed my time with that. And that was the beginning of the journey. And I remember once I went for a walk in the New Mexico desert down to the Rio Grande, and this is like in January, right? So it's pretty cold. And there was a thermal spring next to the Rio Grande. And I'm down on the banks. I'm looking straight up at this cliff, like 300 or 400 feet high, straight up. And the thermal spring there, and the river's going past, and it was really very, very cold because it was January. So I got all my gear off. I'm lying in this thermal spring in the Rio Grande with my left hand in the water, in the freezing water. And I'm in Fahrenheit. I'm in about 75 degrees water, and it was just beautiful. And I'm laying there having this epiphany of what life is like. So my memory of your part of the country, sort of, I guess that's down in New Mexico around Taos. But my memory of the San Juan Mountains and the time around Durango and that place is very, very special, and I have a deep connection with the Southwest, and I've been back there since. So I love that part of America.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
One of the special places in the world. One of the special places in the world, and all the travel that I've done. I really have a spot in my heart for the Southwest.
Yeah.
So I came back to Australia, and this was just when emails started, and I got this email saying that, and the name we're talking about with Dicky military is the Pitjantjatjara people from the Central Desert. They're the traditional owners of what people once knew as Alice Springs, now known as Uluru, and the rock formation Kalajuda. And they put out an email saying that they wanted interested white men to come out to the desert and basically to go under what they would call dreaming training. Mm-hmm. And the dreaming is I guess the only word that we can have for going into an altered state of consciousness and connecting with the spirit. So they said put in your resume, which I did. I just came back from America, and next thing I'm in the desert with the Pitjantjatjara people. And one of my abiding memories is sitting next to Dicky Military, who became my second teacher. And sitting next to him, and a full-blood Pitjantjatjara guy, and the anthropologists now say that our indigenous people are 100,000 years old. Now, just to put it, and this is not bragging rights. This is not bragging rights. Please don't take offence with this. But Pitjantjatjara have been here in Australia for 100,000 years, and the Native Americans have been in America for about 10,000 years. So yeah, it gives us an idea. And Dicky's sitting next to me is full blood, and he's actually a nuncli is Pitjantjatjara for sharp, but he's what they call the number one nuncli of the Pitjantjatjara people. And he's like his LORE law and LAW law is like 100,000 years old, and he's talking. Yeah, and he's fortunately, he couldn't speak a word of English. And another one of our guys was an interpreter. So, we could have some dialogue. And he said, look, he knew the Pitjantjatjara word for white man is Wali Palya, and he said we knew Wali Palya was coming 200 years ago. We've been waiting for you.
Oh my
we also know that Wali Palya is going. He said the only Wali Palya that will be left will be those that are connected to the land.
Wow.
Now Dickie died in his early 90s because he first saw a white man when he was 40, and he grew up on bush tucker. So his body was just set up and died in his early 90s. These days, our indigenous people will live to about 45. And the intense sugar, the standard diet for our marginalised indigenous people is KFC and a big bottle of lemonade. By the time they're 45, they'll be blind from diabetes. By the time they're 50, they'll be dead.
Their bodies just weren't meant for those foods. None of our bodies are really meant for those foods, but it's just disastrous.
Absolutely. Well,
and it's like here with the Native American population with alcoholism and the drinking. That stuff wasn't, they're suffering. The people are suffering because they've been disconnected from their land. They've been stripped away from some of the things that empowered them, and now they resort to alcohol to make themselves feel better, and it's just a disaster, and it's very painful to see and watch.
And the similarity is stunning. Our people too. They not only have alcohol problem, but they sniff petrol as well. So that the brain damage that comes from that is palpable. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I spent time out there in the desert, and we danced. And made these headdresses that are like 3 feet high, and painted our body with ochre and did all the ancient stuff and learned ritual. And it was there that I first experienced the rainbow serpent, which is the deity of the land. And we went through this process, and basically into an altered state of consciousness, and the rainbow that came through. She had a very simple message. It's just like any mother, if every person does the little things for the planet, then the planet will survive. Mm-hmm. If every person does the little things for the planet, then the planet will survive. And mothers are no different. If the children just do the little things for the mother, then the family's happy. Yes. It's when we do nothing that life becomes like substance. So from there, I came out, and Raphael Locke, my three teachers in that class, Raphael Locke had come back. He was Australian. He came back to Australia. He was a double PhD in anthropology and psychology, a medical doctor to the boot, and as I said, initiated shaman in two Native American practices. And he came back to Australia and decided that he was going to teach shamanism, and there was a formal course. So for 10 4-day sessions and 10 4-day sessions and then 4 10-day sessions in the desert, about 80 days of one-on-one training with Raphael on shamanism. Then I went through a 10-day initiation in the Simpson Desert, and that was my first initiation into shamanism. From there, I started to about 15 years ago. I started to practice as a shaman, I thought, well, put it out there into the community and see what comes. And basically, everybody was coming to me were coming because they had trauma, and because the system had failed them, because just talking to psychiatrists that were being medicated, they got to a point of frustration, a lot of people come because it's a last resort. They're tired of being numbed out. They're not connected to life. They're unhappy, and they're just looking for something that might work for them. And that was really interesting because I started to do this work and started getting results by taking people through shamanic ritual, and people were getting better. And I'm thinking to myself, because my practice originally was spiritual and it was personal. There's nothing evangelistic about shamanism. This is not about getting out there and beating a drum. I'm a teacher and I've got about 40 graduates, and I say to all my graduates, you just got to find your own way. You've got to find spirit within yourself. You've got to express who you are. You need to take everything from your teachers and then take it from yourself and develop your own style. It's not like becoming another Orion, for instance. So the whole thing is very different to the set of religions where you go off and everybody does the same training and you have the same church and you teach the same cosmology, and it all fits within a very structured and rigid boundary. Every person has different gifts, and in my world we go and find the gifts that we have and we build upon those, and they're gifts in life. If you look at the different profiles that come through Myers-Briggs, a very simple psych test about whether you're intuitive, whether you're feeling, and all those sort of things. And you look at the gifts that you naturally have, and you build upon them. So my practice started to emerge with this, and there were at times stuff that was distinctly spirit-based. People believed they had entities on board, and there was the occasional curse type work, especially people coming from Africa, and the whole notion around possessions is something we can talk about for hours, and especially with use of recreational drugs. We open up the pineal gland, crown chakra, and whatever's floating out there can come on board, and that's the basis of a lot of the problems. But getting away from that, sorry, you're going to ask a question, Charlie.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that what a fascinating journey that you have been able to get to that place to where you are today, to be able to be an initiated shaman that is actually learning how, or has learned how to draw people's talents and gifts and those things to emerge from themselves and to have a deeper connection. And that it's when people are coming to you that where they've tried everything else and nothing has worked, and that's when they find people like you and people like me and other people who have said there is another way and there's a different way. And I would like to go just backtrack before we get into some of the things about the journey with plant medicine. I think it's important for people to grasp and understand the difference between what a shaman is and what a priest is. And how does a shaman differ from a pastor and a priest? And I think it's important so that people can know the difference, because they both originate from the same kind of idea. The healer archetype almost is really at its core. And then they're just kind of branched off in different directions. Could you expand on that just a little bit before we go into plant medicine?
Yeah. The word shaman originated when anthropology first kicked off in the 1950s. They went to the Tungus people in northern Siberia, and they had a word called saman. It was S-A-M-A-N, which has now become shaman, and the literally translated means one who knows. So the difference between a shaman and, for instance, a traditional priest, imam, rabbi, is that we go into an altered state of consciousness to connect with spirit on behalf of our client. And so we go into the person's soul. Mm-hmm. The shamanism is the only healing modality that is interested in the journey of the soul, coming into life, and what may happen before life, to go through a complete birth, and that doesn't always happen. To go through the initiatory cycles of life, to go through eldership, then to go through a complete death, which doesn't always happen. And so from that perspective, we are looking at the whole journey of the soul, going from one end to the other. We are not coming from a set cosmology. The shamanism embraces animism. So we're looking at the plant and the animal kingdom, and when we look at someone's soul, we're looking at their landscape. And landscape is something that everybody can relate to, whether you're a labourer or a PhD. Everybody knows what a landscape is. So what is your landscape? What is travelling within the landscape, and the metaphor, and where the metaphor comes in terms of the soul's journey, and piecing that together so that you can provide you can provide a solution to your client. The big difference for us is that we are simply door openers. We are looking to take our clients through a process to find spirit within themselves. Whereas a priest looks to say, I'm a pastor of God, I've done the training, you will find God through me. And I will lead you in the ritual that I do, and I'm your way. Come to me for all your guidance. Now, we still provide guidance, but it's transitory. It's like, well, let's open up the world for you so you find spirit within yourself. So we're not looking to control. We're not looking to create, an ism here. But what we are looking to do is, of course, true community that's based on everybody connecting with each other and living life on a daily basis, not just being a once a week shaman, but being a 7 day a week shaman, and being the best version of who you are in that process.
Well, it's helping people to tap into their own divine source that lives within them. And so that you're almost opening the door to their own soul. You're helping them to find their own soul again, and to understand that this is a spiritual journey that we're all on. And when you're in those crises that so many of us are in right now, because of whether it's anxiety, depression, fear, what's going on the planet right now, COVID-19, the protests here in America, and these things, they're all causing us, there's an opportunity here for us to really turn inward and go in deeper into our soul to be able to communicate and see what's really going on inside of us. What kind of a people do we want to be? What kind of a world community do we want to be? I mean, these are big probing questions that what the outside world is happening is hopefully giving people an opportunity to turn inward and to see, oh my gosh, there is an inner landscape inside here that is so profound, and I need to investigate this more, because by God, that's what is being asked of me right now to move through, and help me to tap into this part of my soul, because it's like we're yearning to have a connection to spirit in a way that we haven't all been able to have before. That's what I see is going on in the world today.
If I could take that one step further, Charlie,
Sure.
With me and what I teach is that our intuition is our connection to our higher self. And when you listen to your intuition, then basically that's your guide. And every time I've chosen to ignore my intuition, I've paid a dear price. So now I listen to my heart, I listen to how I feel. And if something is true for me, then my body goes off and says, yeah, this feels right for me. And that's my guide coming from my soul, my intuition, my guide goes with that. And when I do ancestral work, I connect ancestors to my client via my client's intuition. And it's interesting, just talking about intuition, when people come to me, there are 4 cardinal points, east, north, west and south. And they have different colours and different virtues. And I don't tell my clients this. I say, hey, listen, before we do anything, I want you to walk around my medicine wheel, my dreaming wheel, to associate yourself with cardinal points. Listen to your intuition and tell me which one is speaking to you today, which one feels right for you today. So, the East is about challenge and the path of the heart and new beginnings. The East is about path of the heart and new beginnings and where the sun rises. The North is about challenge, about courage, strength, determination. The West is about healing, humility and compassion. And the South is about wisdom and what do I need to know. And so when they go to one of these cardinal points and listening to the intuition, the spirit of the earth is coming through those cardinal points, through the client's intuition, telling me, hey, today I want to be healed. Oh no, I've got a challenge. Oh, I've got to need a new beginning. Or I've got to listen to the ancestors. So before I've done anything, the intuition of my client, along with the spirit of the earth, along with going to these cardinal points that have specific meaning, already tells me, what needs to be fixed on this day for that person.
Well, you also work with people who have experienced a lot of trauma, right? I mean, and a lot of times we teach what we know and helping people to get through. And how do you help someone who's suffering from PTSD, depression, or trauma? What is the process? What is your process to help them overcome these issues? And I want to add another question too there, just because I think it's connected. What about inherited trauma? What about the trauma that gets passed down the generations? Can a shaman help us to heal our ancestors as well as ourselves? Is that possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Science has proven now that trauma gets passed down in the DNA through generations. And certainly the advent of neuroscience in the last 5 years of my life has unpacked what shamanism is about. And how neuroscience now and shamanism are almost going hand in glove with dealing with trauma. From that perspective, when people come, we go through a 3-day process, and the first process is to look at ancestral trauma that's passed down, and this is done in ritual. So the ancestral line can be viewed, ancestors can come forward, and there can be direct communication around it. And in the ritual process, ancestral trauma can be healed. We look at the soul, and also we have another process of looking at the river of life, and the river of life is a metaphor. What does the client's river look like? Is it going to be deep and not flowing, which means it needs to speed up, which means that you have to get into life, you've become a couch potato? Or is the river really solid and there's the sun shining on it, there's vegetation that's flowing through, all that's good? Or are there any obstacles in the river? What are those obstacles which can be removed? Or if the river is going so fast over rocks, that means, hey, you need to slow down and nurture yourself. And so you start to look at when we do a healing, it's on 5 levels, Charlie. It's firstly the body, the heart, the mind, the soul, and the etherics. The etherics is a 1 meter energy pattern around your body. So we're looking at the 5 levels when we do healing, and in our rituals we address all 5 levels. So when we have someone who's deeply traumatized, that we come in and we go through that initial, almost like a diagnostic process, and then in consultation and through divination, divination is a process where we say, yeah, what do I need to know about this person, and we get that from spirit. And then we say, okay, well, this is where your traumas come from, and usually the trauma is going to have a specific emotion attached to it. And in our world, not only do we deny emotion, we repress it. So it's not cool to be angry. And you will find that a lot of the clients come with a volcano that's ready to explode. And so usually, often but not always, we go through a specific cathartic anger ritual where people get to go to the extreme of their anger and get it all out, because it is an energy contained within the body. And from there, then we go through another 2 rituals where we bring the person back into a place of peace and happiness, having got rid of that which they've been carrying. And the somatics of it is that when the client comes out of the time, usually they feel a hell of a lot lighter, which means that the body is saying, hey, look, I've been carrying all this stuff all this time. And now I've got rid of it. Oh boy, do I feel lighter? And that's the confirmation that we've effected a state change within the client. When we talk about neuroscience, and certainly I recommend the book "The Body Keeps Score" by Dr. Bessel-Van-Kolk.
Fantastic book.
Fantastic. He has a great concept in there called positive attunement, and that starts with the first heartbeat in the womb, whether you're loved, held. And then the question that I always ask is, did you feel safe as a child? And if you didn't feel safe as a child, you're going to have negative attunement, which means you're going to have trauma resident within your body, which means that from a shamanic point of view, we can help. So from that perspective, when we talk about the concept of attunement, we talk about moving people from not feeling safe and not being able to trust to taking through a process where they can feel safe. And they're in a process then of understanding that they're open to people earning their trust.
Yeah. So important. That's so important, to earn your trust to people, because especially when you're dealing with people who have experienced trauma in their life in any way, they don't feel safe in their bodies, they don't feel safe around people, that ability to trust has been broken. They've been betrayed at a very core level. And so that to realign themselves and to reacquaint themselves that they're safe, that they're okay, and to trust that somebody else is going to be looking out for me and helping me on this journey to heal without any judgment, without any shame, and to being able to take them on that journey is profound. If you could share, I know we're coming, I can't believe how these shows come down close. I would love for you to just share a little bit about the journey that you had with plant medicine, and then if we could go into the ceremony. I know I've asked Orion if you could bring in a healing ceremony prayer for all our listeners, and that is just a shamanic healing prayer for our world, our nations, our people that are what they're experiencing today, to help them. Something deep inside of them, if you could help.
Yeah, be delighted. Yeah, so as I mentioned, my 3 teachers have now passed, and I'm getting towards the winter of my life. So I decided then that it was about time I learned about plant medicine, and I did a hell of a lot of research because ayahuasca. Io is the deity of the Amazon. She's the female deity, and Washka means vine. So ayahuasca is vine of the soul, and let me tell you, she's tough. But I did I then went on this journey into the Amazon, and I've been there 4 times now. I'm heading back again next year. I did all my research. I go to a place in Iquitos called Hummingbird, and Jim's there with Shabir, my wife Gina. He's an American guy. He's been there for about 20 years. and he runs a really tight program. Fantastic. And Manaim is the ayahuasquero that's there, and I'm part of the team these days. In fact, they suggest I should go and live there, but being Australian, and a month in the rainforest in the Amazon is about all I have in the community. But anyway, so I started I started the journey with Aya, and let me say, and I'll just talk about, you can have the most beautiful, inspiring, loving experience, and I've said to some of my clients over there and who've been deeply traumatized, and Mother Aya, tell them and nurture them, and give them an experience that is beyond words that can describe what the experience was. And then in my case, I go over there and she invariably kicks my butt. With that, my journey's been a little bit tougher, but as Jim and Manaim say, the more work that you've done, the bigger lessons you're going to learn, and certainly in my case, with I experienced ritual death, going to my last breath and saying, "Okay, you can take me now. I can't take it anymore." And from there, Spirit showed me that the whole journey is surrendering to Spirit. And having been an ex-army officer and all of that, surrender is not a word that is in my vocab.
Nope.
But physically, I had to go through the process. Physically, I had to go through the process of surrender. I literally thought I was going to die, and I was happy to. So from there, and this last time I went, believe it or not, she actually did some psychic surgery on me, and with that I came back with a different set of skills. The first time it's happened, all the other ones have been butt-kicking teaching lessons. This one, she did a little bit of work on me and enhanced my ability to perform healing around generational healing around ancient trauma and how all that works. So it's the first time I've received a gift from Spirit around something specific that I could use in my daily practice. There's another hallucinogen called San Pedro, also the indigenous word for it is hochuma, and it's a crushed cactus coming up from the Andes. The deity up in the Andes is Apu, and with the blessings of Apu, and it's a process of a bit like an avatar process. You take San Pedro and you go on this mystical journey into nature, and you start seeing how all of life is connected. And in my journey, in that we are part of the cycle of life. We are meant to be in harmony with the planet on a whole number of levels. We're not here to dominate it. We're here to connect to it, and there we are. In these days, I talk about nature being my religion and the bush is my church, and that's come straight from Quachuma. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And when you talk about plants, you need to be doing these kinds of mystical journeys and sacred with the shaman, with someone who's been trained in these things, correct? Before people engage in that?
Yeah.
Because it needs to be guided.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Manaim has been an ayahuasca for about 40 years. If you're going to have a dark night of the soul, look, this is medicine. It will never be recreational, and it can be tough. And you have to have strong boundaries around duty of care. And you're not in control for 6 to 8 hours, and on Quachuma it's for about 12 hours. You're not in control. So you need to have a very strong regime around you, so you don't go wandering off in the bush and get lost and die. You can't mix this stuff with any psychotics because it can be fatal. If you're going to have a dark night of the soul, you need to have a highly skilled ayahuasca traveling with you to keep you safe, and to make sure that you get the full benefits of the journey that goes with that. So this stuff is not to be treated lightly, and this is where I have the utmost respect for Jim and Gina and Hummingbird in Iquitos in Peru. They run a tight ship with a high sense of duty of care. And I've referred many of my clients say, look, Iquitos is the ayahuasca capital of the world. There are cowboys there, they're going to rip you off. Absolutely. You know, like anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But looking for the healing journey, I can't recommend Hummingbird enough.
That's and you know what, I've been meaning to find a place, and so I think you and I will have to talk offline so that I can find this, because I think that's part of my journey here in the next few years as well. I definitely want us to get to the prayer, because I can't believe how fast this show goes, Orion. And if you could go ahead and introduce us to who the Rainbow Serpent is and what the ceremony is for, and then take us through this. We're going to go over just a little bit. If you could stay on for just a little bit, and really want
How much time have I got, Charlie?
We've got 9 minutes.
Okay. All right. So the Rainbow Serpent is the deity of the desert people and the people in the west of Australia. It's known, the indigenous word for it is the Wanampi. That's the Pitjantjatjara word for the Rainbow Serpent. It's the bringer of life and death and water, and it is revered through that indigenous culture. I've experienced the Wanampi twice, and I have an agreement with the Wanampi to bring the Wanampi consciousness to the Western world. So guys, what I want to do now is to take you on a journey with the Wanampi. So if I can ask you to close your eyes, please. Close your eyes, and I now want you to follow your breath into yourself. Just taking breaths, going into yourself. Going into yourself. Going into yourself. Going down. Deep into yourself. Deep. To a place of stillness, no mind chatter, just that place of stillness, place that's in the amygdala, that organ at the base of your reptilian skull, between fight and flight, into that stillness area, that part of your body that's at peace with you and the world. There is a door in front of you. And you open that door and there's a ladder. And you start to climb down this ladder, going down this ladder, down this ladder, down. So all of a sudden you hit the desert floor and you look across this desert floor. There's a full moon. It's the middle of the night, but the visibility is wonderful. And it's the Australian desert. Red sand glowing. Red sand glowing. Soft, like talc under your feet. And across you see a lake. A black ebony lake, which is reflecting the full moon. The contrast of the black of the lake and the white of the moon is stunning. And so you walk across the desert to the lake. Coming across to the lake. And you sit down next to the lake. And as you look upon this mirror of the reflected moon, the water in the middle of the lake starts to ripple. And the head of a giant serpent now starts to rise up in front of you. Starts to rise up in front of you. It is huge. It's a bit like a human looking at an ant. You look up at this great snake, and you look into the eyes of the snake, and you see colours of the rainbow in the snake's eyes. And your body feels healing, humility, and compassion. This overwhelming sense of healing, humility and compassion, so that the heart starts to open up as the snake's energy comes around you. And the wannabe lowers her head down. Ah, my child, it is good that you are with me. Come with me on this journey. And so she opens up her large, cavernous mouth. And you think, yeah, you feel your body feeling humility and compassion, your heart is open. And you go into the snake, and you and the great snake become one. Ah, my child, I'm going to take you on a journey back to no time. And so you and the great snake go back and look at no time. And she begins her journey. As snakes do, they sidle across the countryside. They go from side to side. They wiggle their way. And as the great snake sidles from one side to the other, so the lakes are created, and the mountains, and the deserts, and the prairies, and the plains, and the forests. Ah, my child, you too are a great creator being. In your life, you create your rivers, and your valleys, and your mountains, and your plains, and your deserts. But I ask you now to consciously do that in your life. Connect back to the mother. If we all just do the little things that keep mothers happy, then the planet will be better for us all. And your journey now is to reflect on your open heart, your connection to the planet, your connection to your family, with humility, compassion, and healing. Things to make better. I'm going to sing a Pitjantjatjara song now. I'm using Pitjantjatjara clap sticks. Ayuwa, ayuwa, guri, ayuwa, guri, ayuwa, guri, ayuwa, guri, ayuwa, guri, ayuwa. Having now taken a view of your life filled with an open heart, with humility, compassion, healing myself, healing my relationships, healing the planet to make things better. The wannabe then says, it's time now to return back to the lake. And so, having been on this creation journey, we now come back to the lake. And she opens her mouth and you walk out. And you look back into the wannabe's eyes and give thanks for this journey. Oh, my child, now that you know where I am, you can always come to the door, go down the ladder, come to the lake. I will always be here for you. Always be here for you. And let spirit within you start to emerge. And so you give a final thanks, and the great snake rises up and lowers itself slowly down, back into the lake. Into the lake is once more perfectly still, reflecting the beautiful moon. This moon, of course, being a metaphor for the Earth Mother and the grandmothers and the feminine of life. You give thanks to the moon and the lake, and you turn back and walk across the desert. So you come back to the ladder, when you start to climb up the ladder, coming up the ladder, coming up the ladder, coming up the ladder, till finally to the door, and you turn once more and give thanks for the journey of spirit within you. Open the door and come back to this place, here and now.
Mm-hmm. That was amazing.
Thank you.
No, thank you. That was amazing. Wow. Orion, I wish we could talk for the next 2 hours. Be able to go into. And I know that everybody who tuned in and everybody who listened had the same profound, or to their soul, experience like I had. That was incredible. Really incredible. It's been such a treat to have you, sir. Thank you so much. Just what do you think is, really quickly, what do you think our soul's purpose is? And how do we know if we've found it?
Yeah. Well, we never ever get there. There is no there. It's the journey of each day, and it's the blessings of each day, and we're drawn to the word present, gift and moment, being in the moment to celebrate our journey in life. And for me, it's just a case of embracing two virtues. Kindness. Firstly, being kind to yourself. If you're kind to yourself, you'll be kind to others. The other virtue is humility. Walking a humble path of kindness, being kind to yourself and kind to others, is the journey of life. It's letting go, and that's a letting go of the ego, letting go of needing to be right, self-righteousness, and having respect for all sentient beings. To me, it's just simply kindness and humility.
I love it. I love it, Orion. Thank you, sir. Namaste to your
Namaste.
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 Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the council today. Thank you, KUHS, for being the platform for the council and allowing me to broadcast here, not only in Colorado, but all over the nation and all over the world. Tune in to KUHS Denver. They've got some of the best VDJs, personalities, people dedicated to helping you and getting a perspective on life and helping with your health and your emotions and your spirit as well. And some great music, great music. Tune in to KUHS Denver, the stream. And really quickly, Orion, it has been such an honor to have you, sir. With gratitude and humility, I ask you, first of all, how people can get in contact with you, who want to get in contact with you. And lastly, if you could give one piece of advice, one bit of wisdom from your life experience, what would it be?
Well, firstly, thank you, Charlie. I'm both honoured and humbled to be here with you today. It has been an absolute blessing. Thank you. If people want to contact me, my email address is Orion, Orion, and I'll spell it wyla.org.au, wyla.org.au. That's the not-for-profit that I've set up to work with PTSD here in Australia. So that's my email address there, and certainly I welcome any dialogue that goes with that. If I was to offer just something that you can go away with, look to understand whether you feel safe or not. And if you don't feel safe, then go on a journey to find out what will make you feel safe. And that's the beginning of the healing journey for most of us in the Western world, because most of us grew up not feeling safe. And that impacts on us negatively. It's conscious. And if we look at safety, if we can develop safety in our lives, that means we can then allow people to earn our trust, and happiness will flow from that. So to me, it's always just the starting point of, if you don't feel right, ask yourself the question: if I don't feel safe, then what will make me feel safe? What do I need to do to reach that safety?
Yeah. It's so important. And to be safe and knowing that we're cared for, knowing that we're watched over, knowing that there are so many beings on the and ancestors that are there for us in the invisible world. And once we know that we're safe, we can flower to become the people we were always destined to be. Orion, thank you, sir. It's been an honor. Blessings to you. Namaste, sir. Folks, thank you so much. The council is adjourned. We will be back in a couple weeks with another great show for you. It is an honor to be your host. May you all be well. May you all be free of pain and suffering. May you all be whole. God bless. We'll see you soon.